Invisible and humiliated by her appearance and humble origins, she was merely a cleaning staff member. He, a ruthless magnate, shattered by the loss of his sister and the cynicism of high society. One day, she saved him from a multi-million-dollar corporate scheme, and for the first time, he truly saw her. But what began as gratitude and mutual admiration would soon transform into a forbidden love, threatened by family intrigues, blackmail, and a dark past that would do anything to separate them and prove she was nothing but a gold digger. Prepare for a turn of events that will test the limits of prejudice, trust, and the most unexpected passion. This is a story that will leave you surprised. The New York City sun streamed through the enormous glass windows of the top floor of the Sterling Plaza Hotel, illuminating the executive office where Victor Lorenz signed contracts worth millions. At 38, he commanded a hotel empire that spanned across the United States, but his dark eyes carried an emptiness that all the luxury around him couldn't fill. The death of his youngest sister, Isabella, 5 years ago, had left a wound that never truly healed. She was everything he could no longer be: pure, a dreamer, capable of seeing kindness where others saw only self-interest. The same social parasites who now fawned over Victor had destroyed Isabella with their schemes and falsehoods, leading her to take her own life at 23. Now, Victor saw the world with the cynicism of someone who had learned too early that people are driven only by greed. Stunning women approached him daily, but he knew they only saw his bank account. Powerful men sought his partnership, interested in his influence. Everyone wanted something, no one truly wanted him. 16 floors below, Aurora Mendez pushed her cleaning cart down the third-floor hallway, her steps silent on the polished marble. At 26, she bore a subtle scar that cut across her right eyebrow, a childhood fall's remembrance, and her brown hair was always pulled back in a practical bun. Her navy blue work uniform, always impeccable despite constant use, did little to hide her delicate figure, nor did it attract any attention. "Look, here comes the invisible girl," Carlos, the front desk attendant, murmured to his colleague beside him. "At least she's invisible. Imagine if VIP guests saw that face every time they came up." Aurora pretended not to hear, as she always did. In 2 years working there, she had grown accustomed to the cruel comments, but behind that appearance, which others judged as common, a brilliant mind simmered. She had studied business administration at night, paying for her course with the hard-earned money from 3 jobs. She observed everything around her with keen eyes, understood the hotel's inner workings better than many managers, and dreamed of a world where people were judged by their character, not their looks. On that Tuesday morning, while cleaning the third-floor lounge, Aurora noticed something no one else had. A man in a dark suit, who had presented himself as a VIP guest, was discreetly photographing documents that had been left forgotten on a table in the executive lounge. It was common for executives to leave papers there during meetings, but something about this man's furtive behavior alerted her. She approached, pretending to arrange the crystal ashtrays, and managed to see that he was photographing confidential contracts of the hotel chain, documents containing strategic information about future acquisitions and partnerships. Her heart pounded. Aurora knew that such information in the wrong hands could cause multi-million-dollar losses. Without a second thought, she headed to the service elevator and went up to the top floor. She had never been to the owner's office, but the situation was too grave to follow hierarchies. Victor's secretary tried to stop her. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Lorenz is in a very important meeting and cannot be interrupted by a cleaning staff member." "It's about industrial espionage," Aurora said firmly. "Someone is photographing confidential documents on the third floor right now." The secretary hesitated. Victor Lorenz had given express orders not to be disturbed, but industrial espionage was no laughing matter. Reluctantly, she opened the office door. Victor looked up annoyed, seeing a woman in a blue uniform standing in his doorway. He was about to brusquely dismiss her when Aurora spoke, her voice clear and determined. "Mr. Lorenz, there's a man on the 3rd floor photographing your merger contracts with the Atlantica chain. He's staying in room 312, registered as Marcus Thorne, but I suspect it's a false name. If we don't act now, this information could leak to your competitors before the deal closes on Thursday." Victor stared at her, surprised. Very few people knew the details of that highly confidential negotiation. How had a mere cleaning staff member not only identified the problem, but also understood its implications? Victor rose abruptly, his business instincts on high alert. Within minutes, he organized a discreet operation with the hotel's security. Aurora accompanied him through the corridors, guiding him on the suspect's movements and alternative routes to approach him without causing a commotion among guests. When they finally confronted the man in room 312, they discovered he was indeed an industrial spy hired by a direct competitor. His phone was full of photos of the confidential documents ready to be sent. If Aurora hadn't acted, the loss would have been in the tens of millions. "How did you know about the Atlantica merger?" Victor asked when they returned to his office, his voice laced with a distrust he couldn't disguise. "I've cleaned these corridors for 2 years," Aurora replied simply. "I listen, I observe, I learn. You and your executives discussed this deal many times in the lounge. It's not hard to connect the dots when you pay attention." Victor studied her with new eyes. For the first time, he truly saw her. Not just an invisible employee, but a woman of sharp intelligence, unexpected courage, and a perception that surpassed that of many of his senior executives. There was something in those brown eyes that strangely disturbed him. A depth that sharply contrasted with the superficiality of the people in his social circle. "What's your full name?" he asked, realizing he didn't even know it. "Aurora Mendez." "Aurora?" he repeated, as if testing the name. "You saved my company from a devastating blow. I need to reward you." "Adequately." "No need. I was just doing my job." The simplicity of her reply disconcerted him. In his world, everyone expected grand compensation for any favor rendered. This woman had saved millions of dollars for his company and wanted nothing in return. No money, no promotion, no public recognition. In the following days, Victor found himself looking for Aurora in the hotel corridors. He observed her working with silent dedication, treating even the rudest guests with genuine kindness. He saw how she discreetly helped struggling colleagues, how she comforted a housekeeper crying over personal problems, how she defended a new waiter who was being humiliated by an arrogant guest. But he also witnessed the cruelties Aurora faced daily. Employees made nasty comments about her appearance when they thought she wasn't listening. Guests treated her as if she were furniture. One socialite even purposefully spilled coffee on her uniform, laughing with her friends about how amusing it is to watch the cleaning girl humble herself cleaning up. Victor felt a strange anger boil within him. He couldn't understand why the injustice against this woman affected him so deeply. She was just an employee, wasn't she? But there was something about Aurora that stirred parts of his soul he had buried alongside Isabella. "Mr. Lorenz," Marcos, his general manager, said during a meeting, "some staff members have commented that you've been paying excessive attention to Aurora, the cleaning staff member. Perhaps it would be wise to maintain some distance. You know how rumors spread in this environment." Marcos's observation echoed the warnings Victor's own mind had already raised. He was one of the most powerful men in the country, heir to a family with generations of prestige. He couldn't afford to be interested in a woman society deemed unsuitable for his status. His reputation, his businesses, his position, everything would be at risk. He decided to distance himself, but fate had other plans. The following Friday, A leak in the sub-basement pipes threatened to flood the hotel's main electrical system, jeopardizing not only operations, but also guest safety. The emergency technicians called in were lost in the maze of pipes and wires in the sub-basement. It was Aurora who offered to guide them. "I know every corner of this building," she said. "I can take you exactly where it needs to be fixed." Victor found himself descending into the flooded sub-basement with Aurora and the technicians, both with water up to their knees, she illuminating the way with a flashlight and precisely explaining where each system was located. In the midst of that chaotic situation, wet and dirty, all social barriers seemed temporarily dissolved. When they finally managed to contain the leak, it was past midnight. Victor and Aurora emerged from the sub-basement drenched and exhausted. For a moment, standing in the deserted hotel corridor, they looked at each other in silence. There was something in the air between them, a connection that transcended logic or social convenience. "Thank you," Victor said, his voice softer than Aurora had ever heard. "Once again, you saved my company." "We saved it," she corrected, a small smile touching her lips. Victor extended his hand to touch Aurora's face, to remove a smudge of mud from her cheek, but stopped mid-gesture. The awareness of reality hit them like a bucket of cold water. They were from completely different worlds. This couldn't happen. "You should go home," he said, stepping back abruptly. "Tomorrow I need you to come to my office. There's something important we need to discuss about your future at the company." Aurora spent the entire night wondering what Victor wanted to discuss about her future at the company. She arrived at the office Saturday morning with her stomach churning, imagining everything from dismissal to an impossible promotion. "Please, have a seat," Victor said, gesturing to one of the leather armchairs in front of his desk. He seemed tense, as if he had wrestled with himself all night. "I need to make you a proposal." Aurora settled uncomfortably into the luxurious armchair, feeling out of place in that environment of mahogany and crystal. "Last night made me realize something," Victor continued, walking to the window. "You know this hotel better than any executive I've ever hired. Your capacity for observation and analysis is exceptional. I'm offering you a position as a special consultant, reporting directly to me." I don't understand," Aurora stammered. "You would be my eyes and ears where I cannot be. You would continue circulating through the hotel. But now, with the official mission of identifying operational problems, security issues, opportunities for improvement, a salary 10 times your current one, your own office when needed." Aurora stared at him incredulous. "Why would you do this for me?" "Because you have a rare talent," Victor replied, but there was something more in his eyes that he couldn't or wouldn't verbalize. Over the following weeks, they worked together daily. Victor discovered that Aurora not only observed everything with surgical precision, but also understood the complex human dynamics of the hotel. She knew which employee was struggling financially, which guest was potentially problematic, where resources were being wasted. More than that, Aurora had brilliant ideas to improve the business. She suggested training programs that increased employee satisfaction, identified more efficient suppliers, proposed layout changes that optimized guest flow. "How did you learn all this?" Victor asked one afternoon, after Aurora presented a detailed plan to reduce operational costs by 15%. "Necessity," she replied simply. "When you grow up in a challenging environment, you learn to observe everything, knowing who's who, what each person needs, where the problems are. That can be a matter of survival." It was the first time Aurora had mentioned her origins. Victor vaguely knew she lived in a humble area, but he hadn't imagined the tough reality of her childhood. "My mother died when I was 15, Aurora continued, her voice soft but firm. "Cancer. We didn't have money for proper treatment. I became responsible for my 2 younger siblings. I worked every job imaginable, from market stalls to retail, fast food, and cleaning homes for families. I studied at night because I knew education was the only way out." Victor felt something constrict in his chest. And your siblings? João is in engineering school on a full scholarship. Maria graduated high school with top honors. They are my greatest pride, more than any professional achievement. The admiration Victor felt for Aurora deepened even further. She had faced adversities he couldn't even imagine, and emerged from them not with bitterness, but with a gentle strength that transformed everything around her. As they spent more time together, Victor found himself sharing things he had never told anyone. He spoke about the pressure of carrying a business empire from a young age, about feeling like a prisoner of family expectations. Sometimes I feel like I'm living a life others planned for me, he confessed one rainy afternoon as they observed New York City from his high-rise office. Every decision, every relationship, everything is calculated based on business, on the family's reputation. And what do you truly want? Aurora asked. Victor looked at her, and for a moment the answer seemed too obvious to be spoken. But there was an abyss between what he wanted and what was possible. It was then that Aurora asked the question he feared. Victor, why did you really give me this position? And don't tell me it's just because of my professional talent. He remained silent for a long moment, battling the truth that burned within him. You remind me of someone, he finally said, his voice almost a whisper. My sister, Isabella. She had that same purity, that ability to see goodness where others saw only self-interest. What happened to her? Victor closed his eyes, as if the question caused him physical pain. She fell for the wrong world, for our high society, for appearances, for people who smile for convenience. They used her, manipulated her, then discarded her when she was no longer useful. She couldn't bear the cruelty. She died. Suicide. The word came out like a cut. 5 years ago. Since then I haven't been able to trust anyone until you came along. Aurora felt tears welling in her eyes. She finally understood the pain Victor carried, the shield he had built around himself. Victor, she said softly, I am not your sister. I know, he replied, looking at her intensely. You are much stronger than she ever was. And that scares me even more. At that moment, both realized they had crossed a dangerous line. They were no longer just employer and employee. They were two wounded souls who had found comfort in each other, but who belonged to worlds that would never accept their union. Victor's phone rang, breaking the moment. It was his secretary. Mr. Lorenz, your mother is here. She says it's urgent. Victor paled. Esperanza Lorenz never showed up at the hotel without warning, and her presence always meant trouble. Send her in, he said, looking at Aurora with apprehension. And Aurora, perhaps it's best you leave through the back door. Aurora had barely exited through the back door when Esperanza Lorenz entered the office with the regal bearing of someone who had always controlled everything around her. At 62, the family matriarch maintained a steely elegance, her grey hair perfectly styled and her jewelry discreet but extremely expensive. Her blue eyes, so similar to Victor's, scanned the room as if searching for evidence of something. Mother, what a surprise, Victor said, trying to sound casual. What brings you here on a Saturday? I received disturbing calls, Victor, Esperanza replied, sitting down uninvited, about you and an employee, a cleaning staff member. Victor's blood ran cold, but he kept his expression neutral. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't underestimate me, my son. I have eyes and ears everywhere. I know you've been spending too much time with this woman, that you unaccountably promoted her, that you've been working alone until late. Esperanza paused, letting the words sink in. I hope you understand the implications of what you're doing. She's a competent consultant, nothing more. Victor, Esperanza's voice hardened. Your sister already almost destroyed our family with her romantic fantasies. I will not allow you to do the same. You have responsibilities to the company, to our lineage, to the commitment you made to Fernanda Cavalcanti. Victor felt as if he had been punched. What commitment? The marriage. has been negotiated for months between our family and the Cavalcantis. Fernanda is perfect for you, beautiful, educated, from high society. The announcement will be made at the charity ball on Thursday. You can't decide my life. I can and I will, Esperanza retorted coldly. And as for this, Aurora, she will be transferred to another hotel in the chain, preferably in another state, effective immediately. After his mother left, Victor remained alone in the office, feeling cornered. He couldn't let Aurora be punished for something that hadn't even truly happened between them. More than that, the mere thought of losing her desperate him in a way he couldn't comprehend. He found her in the parking lot, carrying a box with her few personal belongings. Management had communicated her transfer minutes after Esperanza Lorenz left. "Aurora, wait!" Victor called, running to her. "No need to explain," Aurora said, avoiding his eyes. "I always knew this moment would come. Different worlds, remember? I won't accept this. I won't let her do this to you. And what do you intend to do, Victor? Fight your own family? Fight against all of society?" Aurora stared at him, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm not worth this fight. To me, you're worth any fight." The words escaped before Victor could stop them, laden with a truth they had both tried to deny. Aurora dropped the box, and for a moment they simply looked at each other in the empty parking lot, New York City pulsating around them. "Victor," Aurora whispered. He approached, his hands gently touching her face, his thumbs wiping away the tears from her cheeks. "I can't pretend anymore that you're just an employee. I can't pretend anymore that I don't feel—" "Don't say it!" Aurora tried to pull away, but Victor held her hands. "I need to say it. I'm in love with you, Aurora. Hopelessly, desperately in love. For your intelligence, for your strength, for the way you reminded me that real goodness exists in this world." "This is madness," Aurora murmured, but she couldn't pull away. "Then let it be madness." Victor kissed her right there in the parking lot, under the city lights. It was a kiss filled with desperation and pent-up passion, weeks of tension finally finding release. Aurora responded with equal intensity, her arms wrapping around his neck, allowing herself for those seconds to forget all the impossibilities that surrounded them. When they broke apart, both were breathless. "And now?" Aurora asked. "What do we do now?" "We run away," Victor said impulsively. "Tonight, we can go to Paris, London, anywhere far from here." "Victor, be reasonable." "I've been reasonable my whole life. I did everything they expected of me, followed all the rules, and for what? To live an empty life next to a woman I don't love." He held Aurora's hands tightly. "You brought me back to life. I can't lose you." Aurora felt her heart breaking. Part of her wanted to say yes, wanted to run away with him to a place where nothing else mattered but the love they felt for each other. But the sensible part, forged by the hard years in her challenging environment, knew it wasn't that simple. "Your mother is right," she finally said. "You have responsibilities. The company, the employees who depend on it, your family. And you, what responsibility do I have to you?" Before Aurora could answer, Victor's cell phone rang frantically. It was Marcos, his general manager, and the desperation in his voice was palpable. "Victor, you need to come to the Sterling Plaza immediately. There's a fire on the 20th floor. The fire department is here, but the situation is critical. And there's more. There are people trapped in the panoramic elevator." Victor and Aurora looked at each other, their intimate moment abruptly interrupted by reality. Without hesitation, both ran to Victor's car. "Aurora, you don't have to come," Victor said as he sped through the streets. "I know every inch of that hotel," Aurora replied. "You're going to need me." When they arrived at the hotel, chaos reigned. Smoke poured from the 20th floor windows. Firefighters ran in all directions. Guests were evacuated to the street. But the worst was the panoramic elevator, stuck between the 15th and 16th floors with 5 people inside, including a child. "The emergency electrical system failed," the fire captain explained. "We can't reactivate the elevator, and smoke is starting to reach them. We have at most 30 minutes before it's too late." Aurora observed the situation, her mind quickly processing all the information. Suddenly her eyes lit up. "There's a maintenance passage that connects the elevator shaft to the ventilation system," she said. "I can reach them through there and manually open the emergency mechanism." "It's too dangerous," the captain protested. "I'm small enough to fit through the passage and I know the way," Aurora insisted. "It's their only chance." Victor felt his world collapse. "No, I won't let you risk yourself." Aurora turned to him, her eyes shining with determination. "Victor, a child is in there. You'd do anything to save them, wouldn't you?" "Yes, but..." "Then trust me, like I trusted you." Without waiting for an answer, Aurora followed the firefighters, leaving Victor in desperate anguish. For the next 40 minutes, he lived the longest moments of his life, listening on the radio to Aurora's every step through the narrow, dangerous passages of the hotel. When the elevator finally descended with its 5 occupants saved, Victor ran to Aurora, who emerged from the maintenance passage covered in soot and scratches, but smiling. He hugged her right there in front of everyone: firefighters, staff, guests, journalists who had already arrived at the scene. He didn't care who was watching, about the cameras recording everything, about the scandal it would cause. "Never make me go through that again," he whispered in her ear. "Never again," Aurora promised. But both knew that this public moment of vulnerability had changed everything. The next day, their photo embracing would be in every newspaper in the country. The secret was exposed, and the consequences would be devastating. The next morning, Victor woke up to his phone ringing incessantly. Still groggy, he answered without checking who it was. "Did you see the papers?" Marcos's voice was tense. Victor sprang out of bed and ran to his apartment door, where he found a stack of newspapers. The photo was on every cover. Him hugging Aurora amidst the chaos of the fire, both covered in soot, her in his arms as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "Tycoon in love, Victor Lorenz and his Cinderella," splashed the cover of the most popular tabloid. "Love ignites New York, billionaire heirs romance with former cleaning staff member," read another. "From broom to bouquet, the incredible story of Aurora Mendez." The phone rang again. It was his mother. "Victor Augusto Lorenz, you have 5 minutes to get to my house, now." The line went dead before he could reply. An hour later, Victor faced not only his mother, but the entire family council gathered at the Lorenz family estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. Uncles, cousins, the family patriarch, Sebastian, his 78-year-old grandfather, who still commanded the most important decisions of the family empire. 40 years building our reputation," thundered Sebastian, slamming his cane on the floor. 40 years of respect, of tradition, of strategic marriages that strengthened our position, and you want to throw it all away for a watch your words, grandfather," Victor warned, his fists clenched. "An opportunist," Esperanza finished. "Because that's what she is, Victor. Don't you see? She strategically placed herself in your path, created situations to get close to you, and now she's gotten exactly what she wanted. To be photographed in your arms for the whole country to see." "Aurora isn't like that," Victor defended. "Oh, no?" Esperanza smiled coldly and gestured to a man in a dark suit in the corner of the room. "This is Robert Stone, a private investigator. Tell him what you discovered about this Aurora Mendez." Robert opened a folder full of photos and documents. "Mr. Lorenz, I regret to inform you, but the young woman isn't exactly what she seems. She and her siblings have considerable debts. Her brother's college tuition, her younger sister's medical bills due to health issues. They owe over $200,000 to loan sharks in her old neighborhood." Victor felt the world spin. "That's not possible." "There's more," Robert continued. 2 weeks ago, she was seen talking with Ryan Maxwell, the gossip journalist. The same person who published the first story about you two this morning. "You're lying." Victor stood up abruptly. "The photos are here." Robert placed several images on the table. "They met 3 times, and there's more. Last night, after the fire, she received a 40-minute call from an unidentified number, right after your photo was leaked." Victor looked at the evidence, feeling something die within his chest. The photos were unequivocal. Aurora animatedly talking with the journalist known for destroying reputations for money. Son. Sebastian's voice was softer. I know it's painful, but you need to accept reality. This woman approached you out of self-interest. Yesterday's heroic rescue was just the final step of her scheme. She knew she would be photographed, that it would become national news. But what she felt for me seemed so real. Victor murmured more to himself. The best swindlers always make it seem real, Esperanza said, just like those parasites who destroyed Isabella. Have you truly learned nothing? The mention of his sister was like a slap in Victor's face. The similarities were terrifying. A seemingly pure and kind person, circumstances that seemed like fate's work, the feeling of having found someone special. That afternoon, while Victor wrestled with his doubts, Aurora faced her own storm. Her small house in her old neighborhood was surrounded by journalists. She had barely managed to leave for work because, yes, even after all the exposure, she still needed the job. But upon arriving at the hotel, she discovered she had been temporarily suspended until the media scandal subsided. Employees looked at her with a mixture of envy and contempt. Look at her, Carlos, the front desk attendant murmured. The invisible girl turned Cinderella. I bet she's already planning how to spend the boss's millions. It was Aurora's siblings who finally told her about the debts she hadn't known about. Aurora, João, her younger brother said, his eyes tearing up. I didn't know how to tell you. My college scholarship was cut last semester. I had to borrow money to keep studying. And Maria, she needs urgent surgery. But our public health care options mean a 2-year waiting list. How much? Aurora asked, already feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. $200,000, João whispered, and the interest is accumulating. They said if we don't pay in 2 weeks. Aurora felt her legs weaken. $200,000. A fortune to them, crumbs to Victor. The irony was cruel. Now that she was being attacked for being a gold digger, she discovered she truly, desperately needed the money. It was then that her phone rang. An unknown number. Aurora, this is Fernanda Cavalcanti. Aurora knew the name, the beautiful and refined socialite who always appeared in the society pages, usually beside Victor at charity events. Can we meet? I have a proposal that might solve all your problems. An hour later, Aurora was sitting in an upscale cafe, feeling completely out of place amid the sophisticated environment. Fernanda arrived like an apparition. Tall, blonde, wearing an ensemble that probably cost more than Aurora's annual salary. I'll get straight to the point, Fernanda said, sitting gracefully. Victor and I are getting married. Our engagement will be officially announced next week. Aurora felt as if she'd been punched in the stomach. I don't understand why you're telling me this. Because you're in the way, Fernanda smiled coldly. But fortunately, everything has a solution. $500,000 for you to disappear from Victor's life, forever. You're trying to buy me off? I'm offering an elegant solution to an unpleasant problem. With this money, you can pay your debts, take care of your sister's surgery, secure your family's future. All you have to do is leave the city and never come back. Aurora fell silent, her mind processing the offer. It was more money than she had ever dreamed of having. It could solve all her family's problems at once. And what if I refuse? Fernanda's smile turned dangerous. Well, it would be a shame if the press found out about your debts to loan sharks, about how you strategically approached Victor when you learned about your family's financial troubles, about your conversations with journalists. Fernanda paused, letting the threats hang in the air. People are already whispering that you're an opportunist. It wouldn't be difficult to turn whispers into certainties. Aurora realized she was being blackmailed, but also that she had very little power to resist. If she refused, Fernanda would destroy her reputation and still manage to drive Victor away from her. If she accepted, at least she would save her family. I need time to think, Aurora said. You have 48 hours. Fernanda replied, standing up. After that, the offer expires and the consequences begin. That night, Aurora returned home with a broken heart. Not only had she discovered that Victor was engaged to someone else, but also that she was being manipulated from all directions. Worse still, she began to wonder if Victor also believed she was a gold digger. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Victor battled his own doubts. The evidence against Aurora seemed overwhelming, but something in his heart refused to accept that everything had been a farce. He knew he needed to confront her, but he didn't know if he was prepared to hear the truth. Whatever it was, Victor decided to confront Aurora the next morning, but before he could look for her, his secretary entered his office with a worried expression. "Mr. Lorenz, this arrived for you," she said, handing him a brown envelope. It was left at the front desk overnight. Inside the envelope were photos of Aurora entering and leaving a loan agency in her old neighborhood, bank documents showing the family's debts, and a recording on a flash drive. Victor inserted the device into the computer with trembling hands. It was Aurora's voice, clearly recognizable in a phone conversation. "Yes, I understand. 200,000 by the end of the month, or you'll go after my family. I know the deadline is approaching. Look, I have a way to get the money, but I need a few more weeks. He trusts me now, I just need a few more weeks to..." The recording cut off there, but implied enough. Victor felt nauseous. All his family's suspicions were confirmed. Aurora had approached him for money, manipulated his emotions, created situations to gain his trust. He could barely breathe when the phone rang. It was Marcos. "Victor, you need to turn on the TV. Channel 7 now." On the screen, Ryan Maxwell, the most feared gossip journalist in the country, smiled maliciously at the cameras. "Good afternoon, America. Today we have explosive revelations about the romance that became a national obsession. Aurora Mendez, the famous Cinderella of the Sterling Plaza, isn't exactly what she seems." Images of Aurora entering the loan agency appeared on the screen, followed by documents detailing the family's debts. Exclusive sources have revealed that the Mendez family owes over $200,000 to dangerous loan sharks, Ryan continued. And get this, Aurora approached magnate Victor Lorenz exactly when she found out she had no way to pay these debts. Coincidence? I don't think so. The program then showed photos of Aurora talking with Ryan himself, out of context, making it seem as if she had sought out the press to sell her story. We also have incriminating recordings showing Aurora planning to use your feelings against the businessman to get money. True love turned out to be the scam of the century. Victor switched off the television, feeling utterly betrayed. Everything made sense now. The way Aurora had appeared at crucial moments, as if she knew all the hotel's problems. Her brilliant ideas that seemed to come out of nowhere, even her heroism during the fire, all calculated to impress him. On the other side of the city, Aurora watched the same program with growing horror. Someone had completely distorted the truth, transformed her innocent conversations with João about his debts into something sinister, edited recordings to make her seem like a criminal. No, she murmured, tears streaming down her face. That's not how it happened. Her phone was flooded with calls from journalists seeking statements. Neighbors gathered at her doorstep, some with curiosity, others with hostility. Social media was buzzing with cruel comments about the scammer who fooled the kind-hearted millionaire. When she finally managed to leave her house to go to the hotel, hoping to speak with Victor and explain the truth, she found security guards at the entrance who prevented her from entering. "Orders from Mr. Lorenz," the security guard said, avoiding her eyes. "You are no longer authorized to enter the building." Aurora stood on the sidewalk, watching the hotel where she had worked for 2 years, where she had found Victor, where she had discovered a love she believed was true. Employees walked past her, whispering and pointing. Some openly laughed at her humiliation. It was then that she saw Victor stepping out of the elevator in the lobby. Their eyes met through the glass entrance. For a moment, Aurora saw hesitation in his gaze, a doubt that made her heart pound. Maybe he still believed in her. Maybe there was still hope. But then, Fernanda Cavalcanti appeared beside Victor, slipping her arm through his in a possessive gesture. She whispered something in his ear and smiled triumphantly in Aurora's direction. Victor looked away, allowing Fernanda to guide him away from the entrance. Aurora understood that she had lost. Completely. That afternoon, Victor publicly announced his engagement to Fernanda Cavalcanti. The press conference was a carefully orchestrated event, with Fernanda radiant in a designer gown and a 5-carat diamond ring. "Victor has always been the love of my life," Fernanda declared to the cameras. "I regret that he was manipulated by unscrupulous people, but the important thing is that we are now together, as it was always destined." Victor confirmed the engagement with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, pronouncing words that sounded hollow even to his own ears. "Fernanda is the perfect woman for me. We belong to the same world. We share the same values. It was a mistake to allow myself to get involved with other people." The journalist's questions were cruel and direct about Aurora, but Victor merely said it had been a painful but necessary life lesson, and that he would not comment further on the matter. At that very moment, Aurora received an unexpected visit at home. 2 burly men, clearly debt collectors, stood at her door. "Aurora Mendez, we're here to collect your brother's debt. $200,000 with interest. Since you're famous now, we figured you'd be able to clear this up." "I don't have that money," Aurora said, trying to keep her voice firm. "Then we have a problem," said the larger of the 2 men, "because the deadline was today, and when the deadline passes, we resolve things differently." Aurora felt real panic for the first time. Not only was her reputation destroyed, her family was in physical danger because of debts she didn't even know existed. "Please," she begged, "I need more time. I'll get the money, I promise." "1 week," the man said. 7 days. After that, we start with your siblings." When they left, Aurora collapsed onto the living room floor, sobbing uncontrollably. In less than 48 hours, she had lost Victor, her job, her reputation, and now her family's safety was threatened. That night, while Victor toasted his engagement at an event full of socialites in an upscale New York City venue, Aurora was sitting on the floor of her modest room in her old neighborhood, looking at the card Fernanda had given her. $500,000 to disappear from Victor's life forever. It was the only solution left. With trembling hands, Aurora dialed Fernanda's number. "I accept your offer," she said when the call was answered. "A wise decision," Fernanda replied with evident satisfaction. "The money will be transferred tomorrow, but you leave the city tonight. There's a bus ticket waiting for you at the bus terminal. Destination, say, a city on the West Coast. You're not coming back, Aurora. Never." Aurora agreed, her voice broken. There were no more choices. As she packed her few belongings, she found at the bottom of a drawer the golden pen Victor had given her on her first day as a consultant. A simple gift that had meant so much to her. For a moment, she held the pen against her chest, remembering the days when she believed true love was possible. Then she threw it in the trash and finished packing. Aurora Mendez, the woman who had taught Victor Lorenz to love again, disappeared from New York City that night, carrying only the certainty that her love had not been enough to overcome the chasms that separated their worlds. 3 weeks had passed since Aurora disappeared from New York City. Victor tried to convince himself that he had made the right choice, but the emptiness in his chest grew with each passing day. Preparations for the wedding with Fernanda continued at a rapid pace. She had set the ceremony for just 2 months away, claiming that when love is true, there's no reason to wait. But something continued to bother Victor. Small details that didn't fit the narrative of Aurora as a cold, calculating scammer. The way she had always refused expensive gifts, how she had insisted on continuing to live in her old neighborhood even after her promotion, how she had risked her life to save strangers in the fire. It was Aurora's brother João who changed everything. The 22-year-old appeared at Victor's office on a rainy Thursday, soaking wet and visibly desperate. The security guards tried to stop him, but he shouted in the lobby, "I need to speak with Victor Lorenz about my sister. Please, she didn't do any of what they're saying." Victor, who was leaving for a business lunch, heard Aurora's name and felt his heart race. Against the advice of his security guards, he decided to receive the young man. "5 minutes," Victor said coldly, looking at the young man who had Aurora's same gentle eyes. "Mr. Lorenz," João began, words tumbling out, "my sister didn't know about my debts. I hid everything from her because I was ashamed. My college scholarship was cut at the beginning of the semester, but I lied to Aurora, telling her everything was fine. I borrowed money to continue studying and to pay for Maria's treatment." Victor maintained a neutral expression, but something inside him began to stir. "Aurora only found out about the debts the day it came out in the papers," João continued. "She was desperate, not because of you, sir, but because of our safety. The loan sharks threatened to hurt us." "And the recordings?" Victor asked. "Her conversations about getting money. What recordings?" João seemed genuinely confused. "Aurora never said anything about getting money through you, sir. She always said you were a man of integrity who would never take advantage of her position." Victor felt the first tremor of doubt. "Where is she now?" "In that West Coast city, working as a cleaning staff member in a small hotel. She calls me crying every night, saying you must hate her, but at least our family is safe." João paused, wiping his eyes. "Sir, I don't know what happened between you two, but my sister truly loves you. She never wanted your money. She just wanted someone to see her for who she truly is." After João left, Victor remained alone in his office, his mind buzzing. If the young man was telling the truth, then the evidence against Aurora had been fabricated. But by whom? And why? He called Robert Stone, the private investigator his family had hired. "Robert, I need you to show me how you obtained those recordings of Aurora." "Mr. Lorenz, I received the material from a reliable source." "What source?" Robert hesitated. "Actually, it was Fernanda Cavalcanti who first approached me. She said the family was concerned and wanted to protect you from a possible scammer." Victor felt his blood run cold. "Fernanda hired you?" "Yes, sir. She paid for the investigation and handed me part of the material already compiled. She said she had her own sources that—" Victor hung up the phone before Robert finished. With trembling hands, he began to connect the dots. Fernanda had orchestrated the entire investigation, provided the evidence, probably fabricated the recordings too. That afternoon, Victor directly confronted Ryan Maxwell, the journalist who had destroyed Aurora's reputation. He appeared at the journalist's office without warning, accompanied by 2 lawyers. "Ryan, you have 30 seconds to tell me who paid for the story about Aurora Mendez, or my lawyers will sue you for defamation and slander." The journalist, known for his arrogance, paled at the real threat. "Victor, look. It was just investigative journalism. 20 seconds. All right. Ryan threw up his hands in surrender. "It was Fernanda. She approached me with all the material ready, paid a fortune for me to get the scoop, said it was to protect you from an opportunist." Victor felt a fury he didn't know he was capable of feeling. "And the recordings?" "Edited," Ryan admitted. "Fernanda had actual recordings of Aurora's conversations with her brother about the family's debts, but she cut and pasted phrases to make it seem like she was scheming against you. You destroyed the life of an innocent woman for money. Look, Victor, this is how this business works. I didn't know you truly loved each other." Victor left Ryan's office with absolute certainty. Aurora was innocent. More than that, she had been destroyed by people who wanted to separate them, and he had been too cowardly to trust his own heart. That night, Victor confronted Fernanda in a scene she would never forget. He arrived at her apartment with proof of all the manipulation. "You orchestrated everything," he said, throwing the evidence onto the crystal coffee table. "The fake investigations, the edited recordings, the media campaign. You destroyed Aurora to have me." Fernanda didn't try to deny it. On the contrary, she smiled coldly. "I protected you from an unsuitable woman," she said. "Aurora would never be accepted into our society, Victor. You would have become the laughingstock. I did it for love. You did it out of obsession, out of sick possessiveness. That's not love. And what you two had was..." Fernanda laughed scornfully. "Do you really believe an uneducated girl from the streets could love a man like you for yourself? She may not have been a professional scammer, but she certainly saw an opportunity." Victor moved closer to Fernanda, his eyes burning with fury. "Aurora loved me when she thought I was just a manager. She defended me when other employees spoke ill of me. She risked her life to save strangers. Meanwhile, you are exactly like those social parasites who destroyed my sister." Fernanda paled at the comparison. "The engagement is cancelled," Victor declared. "And if you try to blackmail me or Aurora in any way, I will use all my power to socially destroy you and your family." Upon leaving Fernanda's apartment, Victor had only one thing on his mind: finding Aurora and begging for her forgiveness. But when he called Joan, he discovered something that made his world collapse again. "Aurora's gone," Joan said, his voice laden with panic. "She hasn't shown up for work in 3 days. The room she rented in that West Coast city is empty. No one knows where she is." "What do you mean, gone?" "The last thing she said was that it might be better for everyone if she just disappeared. Victor, I'm scared my sister might have done something terrible to herself." Victor felt the panic take over him. Had he discovered the truth too late? Would Aurora, shattered by public humiliation and the loss of the love of her life, have followed the same tragic path as Isabella? Across the entire country, where could the woman he loved more than life itself be? The race against time had begun, but Victor had no idea where to start looking. Victor mobilized every resource he possessed. He hired 10 private investigators, used his contacts in hotels across the country, and even resorted to the police. Each day without news of Aurora was torture. Guilt consumed him. While he had believed the lies and comfortably lived his life of privilege, Aurora suffered in silence, carrying the weight of public humiliation and a broken heart. It was Maria, Aurora's younger sister, who finally provided the crucial clue. The 16-year-old girl appeared at the hotel one morning, her eyes red from crying. "Mr. Victor," she said, her voice choked with emotion, "I just remembered something Aurora always used to say when we were little, that if one day the world became too heavy for her, she would go to the place where she felt closest to God." "What place is that, Maria?" "The St. Benedict's Monastery, nestled in a secluded area of California's Central Coast. Our mother took us there once when Aurora was 12. She was enchanted by the place, said it was where she felt most at peace. When our mother died, Aurora said she wanted to go back there one day to find meaning in life." Victor wasted no time. He canceled all his appointments and flew to a major city in California that same day. From there, he drove towards the Central Coast, with his heart pounding, oscillating between hope and despair. St. Benedict's Monastery was situated on a hill that commanded a view of the surrounding landscape and the ocean beyond. It was late afternoon when Victor arrived, and the setting sun painted the sky in golden hues. He found the abbot, an elderly man with kind eyes named Father Sebastian. "Father, I'm looking for a woman named Aurora Mendez. She may have come here in the last few days." Father Sebastian studied him carefully. "And who are you to this woman?" I am the man who loves her more than his own life, and who made the terrible mistake of not trusting her when he should have." The abbot nodded slowly. "She has been here for a week. She arrived broken, asking only for a quiet place to pray and think. She said she needed to decide if it was still worth living." Victor felt his heart stop. Is she okay? Physically, yes. Spiritually, well, that's why she came here. Come, I will take you to her. Father Sebastian guided him through stone corridors to an inner garden of the monastery. There, sitting on a stone bench under a flowering tree, was Aurora. She had lost weight, her face was pale, and her eyes had lost much of the sparkle Victor remembered. But it was still her, the woman who had stolen his heart and returned his capacity to love. Aurora looked up upon hearing footsteps and froze as she saw Victor approaching. For a moment she thought she was dreaming or hallucinating from thinking about him so much. "Aurora," Victor said, his voice broken by emotion. "What are you doing here?" she asked, instinctively standing up. "I came to ask for your forgiveness. I came to tell you the truth." "What truth, Victor? That I'm a scammer, that I approached you out of self-interest? I've heard all that." "No," Victor moved closer. "The truth is that I was a cowardly idiot who believed lies instead of trusting the woman I love. The truth is that Fernanda orchestrated everything. The fake investigations, the edited recordings, the media campaign, all to separate us." Aurora stared at him incredulously. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you're innocent, always were, and that I've spent the last few weeks living in hell for losing you." Victor took a folder from his pocket with all the documents he had gathered, the confessions of Robert Stone and Ryan Maxwell, the proof of Fernanda's manipulation. "It's all here, all the evidence of how they fabricated the proof against you." Aurora took the folder with trembling hands, reading each document. As the truth unfolded, tears began to stream down her face. "Why, Victor?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why was it so easy to believe I was lying?" Victor knelt before her right there in the monastery garden. "Because I am a wounded man haunted by the past. Because when my sister died, I swore never to be deceived by appearances again. But I ended up being blind to the truth that was right in front of me." He held Aurora's hands. "You showed me that real goodness still exists in the world. You taught me to love without masks, without games, and I repaid your honesty with distrust." "Victor, no. Let me finish," he interrupted, tears streaming down his face. "I love you, Aurora. I love your intelligence, your courage, your ability to see beauty where others see only flaws. I love how you make me want to be a better man. And if you give me a second chance, I will spend the rest of my life proving that you are the most important woman in the world to me." Aurora looked at the man kneeling before her, the powerful magnate who had left his entire world of luxury to look for her in a secluded monastery in California. She saw in his eyes the same wounded man she had met at the hotel, but also a determination that hadn't been there before. "You cancelled the engagement?" she asked. "The same day I discovered the truth. Fernanda will never come near us again." Aurora helped Victor stand up, their hands still intertwined. "Victor, I never wanted your money or your status. I just wanted you, the man who cares about his employees, who carries the pain of his lost sister, who is capable of changing when he recognizes his mistakes." "Then you forgive me?" "I forgave you even before I knew the truth," Aurora replied. "True love forgives, Victor. Always." They kissed there in the monastery garden, under the approving gaze of Father Sebastian, who watched from afar. It was a kiss that sealed not only their reconciliation, but a new beginning based on truth and mutual trust. 6 months later, the wedding of Victor Lorenz and Aurora Mendez was celebrated at a church in her old neighborhood, amidst the community where she had grown up. It was a simple but moving ceremony, attended by hotel staff, neighbors from her old neighborhood, and a few true friends of Victor who had learned to see beyond social prejudices. Aurora wore a simple but elegant dress, and her inner beauty finally reflected in her radiant face, beaming with happiness. Victor, in a light suit and a genuine smile, looked younger and more alive than he had in years. "Do you promise to love each other, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, respecting and honoring each other every day of your lives?" asked the community pastor. "I do," they said in unison, looking at each other as if they were the only people in the world. When they kissed as husband and wife, the small church erupted in applause and tears of joy. João cried, proud of his sister. Maria smiled radiantly in her bridesmaid dress, and even some hotel employees who had mocked Aurora in the past were present, asking for forgiveness and celebrating the love that had triumphed over all prejudices. At the simple reception that followed in the community center, Victor danced with Aurora, laughing as she tried to teach him some of her favorite local dance steps. He had discovered that true happiness was not in the gilded ballrooms of high society, but in the arms of the woman who loved him for who he truly was. "Do you regret it?" Aurora asked as they danced, observing the contrast between that party and the luxurious events Victor was accustomed to. Regret what? Of having found true love, of having learned that real beauty lies in the soul. Victor twirled her around, his smile brighter than any crystal chandelier. "Aurora, you gave me the most precious gift there is. You taught me to see with my heart." Years later, when they told their story to their children, they always ended with the same lesson. True love isn't blind. In fact, it sees beyond everything that doesn't matter to find what truly counts. And when two souls recognize each other, not all the prejudices in the world are capable of separating them. Aurora was never again called ugly, not because she had physically changed, but because Victor had taught the world to see her through the eyes of love. And Victor never felt empty again, because he had learned that true wealth was in the extraordinary woman he chose to share his life with, proving that the most beautiful fairy tales are those where the beauty of the soul surpasses any appearance, and where genuine love transforms not just two people, but their entire world.